1 Edward 1029, copy, threatening traffic.
Copy, moving route.
Edward 1029, if you can please respond to 2020 McNeil Street, Lakeview.
Copy. If you still have roll on, get the ATO information first.
Welcome to Shooting Straight with Brad and Casey. I'm Brad Carlyon, your Navajo County attorney, and my partner is Sheriff Casey Clark. Today's guest is Jason Moore, one of my deputy county attorneys, and we're going to be talking about the new regional dispatch that we're starting here in Navajo County. Before we get questioning Jason, Casey, can you give us some background on what's happening in the area of dispatch for law enforcement and fire?
You know, this really came to light 5 years ago or so. I think the former chief here, Jeff Smythe, and Summit Hospital, probably Ron MacArthur, started talking about the need for regional dispatch in this area. I got involved in it, a year or two later, and we've been looking at it. It's gone through several different chiefs, and some different forms of how it was going to be and different agreements. And I think we've got one hammered out now. It's, I think that it's going to be great for the region. If the company that has been doing the study for us gets the contract, they're a world-class organization. They have dispatch centers all over the country, large and small. And it brings law enforcement, fire, EMS all together in one center, so you're not transferring calls, and you get rid of jurisdictional issues. You get, when I say better service, I always really try to make sure that I'm not saying that, the dispatchers we have now from any agency are bad, or they're all great, they do a tremendous job. But when you put everybody together in one room, less information is missed, quicker response times by your EMS, by your fire. For instance, it's really strange how the system up here works for 911. For instance, in Heber, if you call from a landline, it goes right to Holbrook. If you call from a cell phone, to the county anyway, it goes to the county. If you call from a cell phone, it goes to Apache County, and then they transfer it back to us. That's seconds lost. And possibly we've had, where the calls get dropped and so forth. And when people call 911, it's an emergency situation.
Let me back you up a moment. Since we're talking about radio transmissions, isn't that governed by the FCC and the federal government? And aren't they making some additional requirements for the kind of equipment, the frequencies being used, that all agencies are having to address in the next couple of years?
Well, that's our radios. That's the radios, and it's supposed to be, they can go digital. It's a different frequency. I'm not sure the height of the frequency, but that actually came into effect about a year ago. And so we've all the agencies up here that I'm aware of have transitioned over to that. The dispatch center is basically phones coming in, but it's also radio traffic going out. It's just really going to, I think, and then economy of scale. If you look at a few years ago, the sheriff's office downtown has a dispatch center that costs somewhere about $500,000 to $650,000 about 10 years ago. And Sheriff Butler at the time was able to get that through Homeland Security, because our dispatch center we had before that was built back in the 70s. So everything was falling apart. And then you had Holbrook PD a block away. They have a dispatch center, and it's probably $200,000 or $300,000. Their equipment's falling apart, so you have two dispatch centers a block away, and you're paying for the PSAPs, which is the money that goes to the 911, and then you've got X amount of employees over there, and so many at the sheriff's office. When you combine all of that, it saved the city money, it saved the county money, and it gave better service to the citizens. So economy of scale, everything. And I've heard Supervisor Tenney talk about, in government we need to start doing things differently. And this is a great way to do it differently. where the citizens benefit from service and from tax dollars.
Jason, you got thrown in the middle of this as the legal beagle on it. What has been your role in helping to get this regional dispatch up and running?
Herding cats.
In a lot of ways, it has been. This is, I think, the final draft that's went in front of our Board of Supervisors last week, as well as the individual fire districts who are involved in this matter. That draft is probably the 10th draft of this document that we've put together. And there's been a lot of reasons for that, but just as time has gone on, the vision has changed a little bit over time from what originally had been planned, and so we've got it to a point where I think it's something that everybody's happy with and going to work with. What it does is it creates a separate legal entity, a separate governmental entity that'll be made up of a board run by 2 representatives from fire districts, 2 representatives from the county, and a representative from the city of Holbrook. And that governing board will be responsible for making decisions with regard to what's best for the Consolidated Dispatch Center, what kind of contractors to hire, what kind of equipment might be needed. That board will be responsible for making those decisions. And so I think we're there.
One of the things you mentioned was that the vision has changed over time. What is the vision that all these entities are trying to focus upon?
Well, the vision, and I think it's something that Sheriff Clark commented on a second ago, that the bottom line, the main reason for doing this is to try to improve the level of service for the citizens in Navajo County. When we've had representatives from the hospital come down and talk to us at our consolidated dispatch meetings, and the hospital's been instrumental, in pushing this process along. But one of the things that they have wanted to see from their side is consolidation of a dispatch center, because one of the things that Ron MacArthur from Summit talks about, as well as the ER docs who've come down and talked to us, is when someone out there is in a serious accident or whatever, you basically have what in the medical world they call the golden hour, from the time the incident occurs to the time you get them to the level of treatment that they need to be at the ER, and you basically have an hour to do that for critical injuries. And the idea is that if we consolidate dispatch, get it all together in one center, avoid confusion about who's responding, things of that nature, you're more likely to be able to get that person to the hospital and get them the needs and service their medical needs within that golden hour.
How are we going to pay for this?
Well, right as it is right now, pretty much everybody has to pay for dispatch already. The county has to pay for dispatch, regardless of who the fire districts go through for dispatch services, they have to pay for dispatch anyway. So really, this isn't a brand new service that is out there. It's just that that service is being provided in a different way than it was before. So the really, in terms of the expenditure of additional money from the fire district perspective, or even from the county's perspective, it was an expense we had anyway. It's just we're changing how we deliver the service and how it's paid for and who it's paid to. So
is it perceived that we'll be saving money in the long run by doing the consolidation?
In the long run, that there is talk that we should save some money. According to IXP, who was the contractor who kind of did the feasibility study for this, they project that there should be some long-term cost savings. We're talking probably, maybe in a 10-year time frame or time window, but over the long term, it should be more cost effective.
One of the things on cost effective is I spoke earlier that our dispatch center is about 10 years old, maybe 12. And the maker is Orbicom. You cannot buy parts for that anymore. And there's, to build, if the county was to remain as it is, and we do business as it stands, the county can't come up with $650,000, $700,000 to buy new consoles. Mm-hmm. And you have to have consoles in order to deliver services, emergency. And I think several of the PDs are in the same shape, that, this equipment's very expensive. And just because the economy's been the way it is, but even in a good economy, I don't see where the county could buy or fund the sheriff's office, over $500,000 for new consoles. Mm-hmm.
You talked about Navajo County and some of the other partners of this are signing the agreements to get it up and running. When do we actually foresee the consolidated dispatch operational?
Well, I can tell you that the first meeting of the new governing board and the name of it will be the Northeast Arizona Regional Dispatch Center. We're anticipating that the first meeting of the governing board for that new entity is going to occur the first week of August. One of the responsibilities of that board is going to be first to hire a contractor to help manage and run the dispatch center. And I think jointly with that managed services provider, they're going to have to set a target date, a quote, go operational date for that. And I don't necessarily know when that will be, but I would anticipate it'll be in the next few months.
And they're going to be using the current Sheriff's Office dispatch center as where the hub is?
Yes, the office in Holbrook.
Good.
And I've talked to our employees about it. I talked to our lead supervisor yesterday and told her, that, and I shared with them the RFP, said, we're not trying to, I don't want to hide anything from you. Take a look at it, read it. And I've had a good response from the employees. They're nervous. They're going, well, if we go with we're not part of the county anymore, how do we know we have our jobs? Because you're good. That's why you've done a great job. They're going to look at your personnel forms. I highly recommend everybody that works for me at this point to go over. And with privatization, they could end up, if it was IXP, for instance, they got the contract. Again, they're a nationwide. They have more chances at promotion, training, a great retirement system program. It's a good company if they're the ones that do get the contract.
Jason, you've dealt with IXP during this process. Do you know much about their background and what kind of dispatch centers are running now across the country?
I couldn't give you specific details right now, but what I can tell you is IXP is certainly one of the leading companies that is involved in doing the kind of feasibility studies that we asked them to do in this particular instance. And also IXP provides managed services for a number of jurisdictions throughout the country. I didn't bring a list with me today, but I've glanced at it before, and I think it's a pretty impressive list.
It's small and large agencies. They're in New York City, Baltimore. They're in Columbus, Georgia, just to name a few. But again, managed services or regional dispatch, it's happening all around us. This will make Navajo County, I believe, we're one of the leaders, I believe, in the state as the county as a whole. And it's the way things are going. I mean, you have to change with the times.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, thank you for your time. We really appreciate you sharing this information.
Thank you, Jason.
Yep.
And we'll be back in just a moment with the second segment of our show today. Welcome back to Shooting Straight with Brad and Casey. In this segment, Casey and I would just like to talk a little bit about the Navajo County budget, how it's impacted the criminal justice system, and what new challenges we're facing this year. And our county budget is set by, the rules are set by statute, which are strange. Our budget cycle starts July 1, but our County Board of Supervisors don't formally adopt a budget to August 1. And the end of June, they did adopt a tentative budget. But what are we, Casey, still $4 million under revenues from last year?
I believe that's the number. It's the county is doing better, but $4 million under revenues is still pretty horrendous.
And part of that is we don't know if the federal government will give us our payment in lieu of taxes for all the Forest Service land and BLM land, and that's almost $1.5 million. And then another big chunk is we don't have those Bureau of Prisons and Marshal contracts anymore. What happened there?
Just as Washington has wavered on immigration, I'm trying to be nice, There's less detainees, even though you read the newspaper about all these tens of thousands of children coming over, and other folks. They just kind of ran out of people, so we've lost those contracts to house them.
And didn't the feds go to private prisons too, like the state? And when they opened that one in Texas, they basically took the BOP prisoners out of all of our county jails?
They did. We had that contract long before I was sheriff, and a year or two since I was sheriff. And they did open up one in Texas, which is still suspect to me, because I can't find that prison in Texas. But anyway, that's another story. But so, and then after that, of course, a lot of the folks we did hold for the Bureau of Prisons were illegal immigrants. So, but the numbers have slowed down dramatically.
Slowed down, or they're just dried up and you have none of them in your jails now?
Well, it's catch and release. They're not holding them anymore.
So what is that impact to your department?
Well, this year it was the last couple. It's $1 million. So that $1 million really is $2 million, if my math is right, because now I don't have the $1 million to pay for those employees, but we still have the employees. So then those employees have to get those employees were paid out of that contract, out of that $1 million. And so the county then had to pick up that $1 million. So it's really $2 million.
Since you don't have the prisoners, can't you do away with the detention officers?
We did. We lost some this year, but the facility is so big, you can't close part of that facility.
So it doesn't matter if you have one inmate in a pod or 100 inmates in the pod, you still have to have the same number of detention officers?
Well, not
pretty
one,
much.
but yeah, if you exactly. If you have 10 in there, you still got to have X amount of people. You still need the central control people that open doors. You still need the kitchen crew, and it takes.
And then we still have the state balancing their budget on the county's back. Once again, we got almost $500,000 of money that the state has taken away from us, which just continues to add up. You and I came into office at the same time 6 years ago, and it was definitely the worst time. I had approved at the time 19 prosecutors. I'm down to 13.
We again lost more DOs this year. And it's the right thing to do. I mean, I've cut exactly everywhere I can think to cut. But if we, our population was really dropping for a while in the jail, and then the last few months has been climbing back up again. And that's a safety issue for the employees. It's a safety issue for the citizens. And it's a safety issue for the inmates.
One of the biggest frustrations that I have is not all counties are created equal. When the state legislature and the citizens back in the late 70s, early 80s started to tinker with the funding mechanisms for counties and cities and towns, they basically froze everybody at their rates. So Navajo County has the 4th lowest property tax rate, or 3rd right now, maybe the 4th if we go up to the available levy limit. But you look at Gila County, which is, we're about 68 cents for fiscal year 13. Gila County was over $4. You can't compete with them. They got half the people but triple the budget.
Brad, it makes absolutely no sense that we are running this county in 2014 off of late 70s, early 80s legislation. And that's just one or two of them. We have other laws like that too. But it doesn't make any sense at all. Navajo County is a completely different county today than it was in 1979, 1980.
There's a huge shift in the population structure, yes, from the I-40 corridor down to the White Mountains. We have a lot more people, a lot more business. We're not as much agricultural, farming, ranching as we used to be. But yet, the people you and I meet out in the community say, well, look at Coconino County, all the stuff they do. And they got about the same population. And my only response is because of their property valuation, their tax rate, they got 3 times the general fund money to do the exact same services that we have to do as required by the state.
And again, they were bound by the laws in 79 and 80. So, yeah, it's really mismatched in this state, and it's something that the legislature really needs to take a look at. You know, overall, I mean, I think that it was a great budget year for the sheriff's office. I think for many of the offices of the county, but that's because every office there, whether it's an elected office or a director's office, very conservative folks run it, fiscally conservative folks. You know, we were able to get the employees some raises this year. First time in at least 8 years.
Well, we need to put that in context. They haven't had a raise since 2007.
Right.
For almost 30 months during this recession, our employees took a 2.5% pay cut. And with other costs like medical and retirement going up, all of our employees have seen a significant reduction in their take-home pay.
You know, and one of the things on that is a lot of people have been out of work too. I understand it, and you know, people talk about government employees, but the services that Navajo County provide to the citizens, I believe, are top flight. Not just from the sheriff's office, but all the way around. And at some point, we can do no more. We're losing employees. We're not competitive, and I think that it took a lot of soul searching. It took the right thing to do. And I really appreciate the 4 supervisors that looked at the budget real hard and I believe made a great decision.
You know, and talking about people losing their jobs, we had 2 reductions in force of the county where we laid people off. And plus we're required not to fill positions, which is one of the reasons I've lost so many people over the last 6 years. I think it's 75 positions that we have laid off or just haven't filled when they've gone. But we've been able to provide continued good services. Hopefully the economy will continue to pick up and hopefully our county can get some more money.
Well, you know, and I think that speaks highly of the employees and again the department directors and the elected officials. Is 75 employees were gone. Maybe that was too many. I mean, maybe we didn't need that 75, but services have not been cut. And the other employees have picked up and continued with, I believe, better services now than I've ever seen in this county.
But I can tell you on my side, on the prosecution side, losing all those attorneys,
Absolutely.
Crime did not go down.
No, it didn't.
It's gone up and their workload is probably the highest in the state. But we're running out of time, Casey, and before we get to your most wanted of the month, I just want to remind people that the Family Advocacy Center is having a fashion show on August 2nd at Carlyon in the Country Club. Some of you may remember that last year I wore a dress. People donated a lot of money to see me in a dress. It was an ugly sight, but we did good. And this year we have a special person who is going to be modeling for us. So if you want to find out who it is, call 524-4026, ask for Aaron Ulibarri, and you can get some tickets.
I'll give you a hint. Whoever it is in a hot pink dress.
Casey, who's the most wanted this month?
Well, for this month's Most Wanted, we are looking for 2 individuals. These are pictures and videos of a suspect and a female passenger who fled from Show Low Police on May 14th, 2014 at about 20:45 hours or 8:45 p.m. The vehicle license plate is unknown, but the truck is described as a newer model Toyota truck with either 4 doors or an extended cab. It is purple or possibly royal blue in color. It fled from Officer Rutherford, who was riding his police motorcycle and attempted to initiate a stop for a minor traffic violation. The vehicle fled into Pine Top at a high rate of speed when the pursuit was terminated. The above surveillance photos were taken just prior to the pursuit as the suspects made a purchase at a local convenience store. Any help in identifying these individuals would be appreciated. Please contact Sergeant Hart or Detective Williams at Show Low PD with any information. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us again for Shooting Straight with Brad and Casey.